What if everything you believe is real, is only an illusion? More than 2,000 years ago, one man in Athens dared to ask questions no one else would. His name was Plato, and his search for truth began with loss, doubt, and a world that seemed darker than it appeared. Part 1. A City in Crisis, a Teacher of Questions. Plato was born during a time of war. Athens, the proud city of democracy, had just been defeated by Sparta. The people were angry, divided, and searching for someone to blame. Plato's family wanted him to enter politics, to rise to power and restore their city. But Plato's life changed when he met a strange man in the marketplace, Socrates. Socrates was nothing like the powerful leaders of Athens. He wore no shoes, owned almost nothing, and spent his days asking questions. One afternoon, Plato watched as Socrates asked a respected general, "Tell me, what is courage?" The general answered quickly, "To fight bravely in battle." But Socrates shook his head. If a thief fights bravely, is he also courageous, or is courage something deeper? The general grew frustrated. The crowd laughed, and Plato stood silently, amazed. That day, Plato realized something important. Wisdom was not about giving answers. Wisdom was about asking the questions that cut deeper than anyone wanted to go. Part 2. The Death of a Teacher. For years, Plato followed Socrates, listening to his questions, watching him challenge the powerful. But Athens grew tired of Socrates. Some said he was corrupting the youth. Others said his questions were dangerous, like seeds of rebellion. One morning in 399 BC, Plato stood among the crowd as his beloved teacher was put on trial. The charges? Corrupting the minds of young men and disrespecting the gods. Plato listened as Socrates defended himself. The unexamined life is not worth living. But the jury did not care. The verdict was death. Plato was shocked. The wisest man in Athens, the man who had taught him to seek truth, was condemned to drink poison. On the final day, Socrates took the cup of hemlock. He spoke calmly to his students. "Do not cry for me. Death is only the beginning of another journey." Plato left that prison with a heart full of grief and a fire that would never die. He promised himself that the questions of Socrates would not be forgotten. Part 3. A Restless Journey. After Socrates' death, Athens no longer felt like home. The city was broken, politics corrupted, and Plato's faith in government shaken. So he traveled. He went to Egypt, where he studied geometry and the wisdom of priests. He sailed to Italy, where he learned from the Pythagoreans, a group who believed numbers were the secret language of the universe. But everywhere he went, Plato carried a question in his heart. What is justice? How should people live together? He had seen the best man in Athens condemned by democracy. He wondered, was democracy really the answer? Or was there a better way to guide society? Part 4. The Cave of Shadows. Back in Athens, Plato began to teach, but he did not only speak with words. He told stories that carried deeper truths. The most famous was the story of the cave. He asked his students to imagine this. People are trapped inside a dark cave. All they see are shadows on the wall, created by firelight behind them. To them, the shadows are reality. But what if one person escapes? He climbs out, blinded by sunlight. At first, he sees nothing, but slowly he begins to see real objects, real colors, real life. When he returns to the cave to tell the others, they laugh. They think he is mad. For them, the shadows are enough. Plato leaned in and told his students, "Most people live in the cave. They see only shadows. Philosophy is the courage to turn toward the light." Part 5. The Academy of Ideas. Plato's ideas grew so powerful that he decided to build a home for them. He founded the Academy, the first great university of the Western world. Here, students came not for money or fame, but for truth. They studied mathematics, astronomy, politics, and above all, philosophy. Among them was a young man named Aristotle, who would one day become a teacher himself. In the garden of the Academy, Plato would walk with his students and ask, "What is justice? What is love? What is the good life?" He believed wisdom was not about memorizing facts. It was about shaping the soul. Part 6. The Philosopher-King. In his most famous book, The Republic, Plato dreamed of a different kind of leader. Not a rich man, not a soldier, not a politician, but a philosopher-king. He wrote, "Until philosophers rule as kings, or those who are called kings, and leading men genuinely and adequately philosophize, cities will have no rest from evils." For Plato, true leadership was not about power. It was about wisdom, justice, and the courage to guide others out of the cave of shadows. Part 7. The Legacy of a Questioner. Plato lived to be over 80 years old, a long life for the ancient world. When he died, he left behind more than books. He left behind a way of thinking, a path of asking, questioning, and never settling for shadows. Even today, when we ask, what is justice? What is love? What is truth? We are still walking the road that Plato began. If this story inspired you, please give it a like, share it with a friend who loves learning, and subscribe to Daily English Story. Together, we can grow in wisdom and improve our English one story at a time.